Well, the first answer is we don't have a clue what that feeling is. We just know it, and that's what we trust. We learn to trust the feeling of any movement we did, or any standing posture that we did, before we ever had any concept of what it was we were learning. Now, when did all that learning begin? It began when we first started to walk. And that was when we were still in diapers. We couldn't even talk then. So, did we have any way to think about what we were doing in our movements? No. We had no concept of thinking at that point. All it was at that stage, we wanted to go places. We wanted to get things. That's all we knew. We, as our cerebellum and our nervous system and all the muscles and everything else that makes us us, as that was developing, we just began doing what our developing system allowed us to do. It's like a little bird learning how to fly. It flies because it can, because it is built to fly. We learn to walk at a very early age because that's what we're built to do. As long as everything works correctly, there's no need for us to really know what it is we actually do. Look at a 2, 3-year-old. Look at all the things they do. And look how many times you've thought, oh my God, if that kid keeps doing that, they're going to kill themselves. They're going to hurt themselves. But the kid just keeps on going. They're having fun. They're doing all kinds of daring stuff because they have no fear and they don't break very easy. They are masters of their movement ability. All of us become movement experts in how we use our movement back when we're still in diapers. Everybody who has natural movement ability becomes a movement expert when they're still in pull-ups. They become experts. We became experts with our movements in the practical sense, in the external use of them. We became experts in the way we use our body. That's why everything is easy when our body is working naturally. It's because once we set our posture correctly, everything is put in place that needs to be to do the movements we want to do. And that's the problem and the paradox with why there's no help and no hope. People who lose that natural ability. Because we learned it at such a young age, we had no capability to get it up here in our memory, to understand what we actually do. So everybody, as they go into their adult life, they still know just as much about their movements on a basic level. They know just as much about how their movements work as they did when they were in diapers. There's the paradox, because nobody learned it intellectually at that age. Who's going to teach who or anybody what all of that stuff is that we do naturally, the things we take for granted that just work? The answer is there hasn't been anybody, because nobody has really put it together intellectually on the external use, on the way we actually use our body, from the internal perspective of what's under our skin. All these muscles, bones, nerves, joints, brain, all this stuff, how does it come together to give us our movement ability? There are many movement experts in that part, on the inside of what makes us tick and gives us the ability to walk. And there are many computer models, many theories. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of studies, investigations going on. But still, none of them, nothing that I've found or anybody that I've talked to, you cannot find what it is that we actually use. How do we actually use our body to do what we need to do? That's still a blank. When I tried to get better with my declining movements, I looked everywhere. I couldn't find anything that answered the question of how do I do what that person is doing, that person, what I did before and can't seem to do now. What is it they're doing that I'm not doing anymore, that I'm having problems with? What is it? Nowhere could I find the answer. And I've talked to many therapists and physicians that have said the exact same thing. We're trying to understand this, but when I ask these questions, especially for those that have started to have problem movements, when they start to ask those questions and they start to look at all the literature out there, there's crickets. There's nothing. It's like being outside when there's no moon, pitch black, and all you hear are the bugs and a little bit of breeze in the trees. There's nothing out there. So it's no wonder why those of us with problem movements are the way we are. Because we can't help fix ourselves. The people that we've come to trust with our healthcare don't have the answer that we need to help us move better because they themselves don't know how they move. Think about that. You go to the therapist to help you move better, but they can't explain their movements to themselves or to anybody else on a user-friendly, how do I do it basis, externally, practically. So if they don't understand their movements, just like you don't understand your movements, how are they going to help anyone when that person's movements start to become a problem? That's the paradox. That's why we're stuck where we are. We're stuck, they're stuck, everybody's stuck because the question is not being answered. What do we actually do to make our movements work the way they do? Well, I went through many, many years of this self-questioning. How do I do that better? How do I do what they're doing? How do I walk again? How do I dribble a ball again? How do I throw something again? How do I do all this stuff again? I went trial and error on myself to help me understand what it was I used to do. Okay, I used to do this and that pretty good. Let me go and practice that and try to remember what it was that I did. Okay, now what did I try to remember? What is it that we grade all of our movements on? What it feels like to us. So, when I was there all by myself in that big gym, trying to dribble a ball, for example, or throw the ball towards the wall, I was trying to find what did I feel before? How did it go? I tried to recreate that, and it took a while because there was a lot of trial and error. Gradually, over weeks to months, it started to get better. I started to do better because one, I was in there practicing the same thing over and over again. But the difference with it was, I was trying to put an intellectual understanding into it. What did I actually feel when I did it? What was I actually doing when I did it? To try to piece it together, not only that, yeah, I can do it again, but I understand what it is I'm doing again. Because I have that problem that's always going to be there. My shrinking cerebellum is like a lot of other people out there. It keeps degrading. So the direct effects of the disorder continue to happen because of the degeneration going on. So what I was trying to do was learn what it was I needed to feel and do to understand it so I could do better, but also stay ahead of this shrinking cerebellum up here. And it took years to finally put it together from just being able to stand, to walk, to be able to do a lot of different things. I finally came to an understanding on a practical level of what we actually do, what we actually feel, where those feelings come from, how we reproduce them, how to feel when it's right, how to feel when it's wrong, how to know when it's right and wrong. When it's wrong, knowing how to correct it to make it right to do better. So, off we go.